12 News Hurricane Headquarters, sponsored by Entergy.
Thanks for joining us for our annual 12 News Hurricane Special. I'm Cladra Rhodes.
And I'm Nick Canizales. Now we want to make sure that you and your family are prepared for whatever comes our way.
In the next 30 minutes, we'll cover all of the essentials, including the new technology that is helping scientists better track the storms. Plus this.
It happens. It doesn't have no mercy.
What you need to prepare for now and why what you need in your hurricane supply kit may vary based on where you live in Southeast Texas.
Yeah, but first, to Chief Meteorologist Patrick Vaughn.
He's here to break down how El Nino will be the prevailing impact on this hurricane season.
You've probably heard a strong El Nino is on the way. And what does El Nino mean for the upcoming hurricane season? First off, what is El Nino? El Nino is a displacement of warm water temperatures. Usually they're in the West Pacific. This year they're going to be off the west coast of South America, displaced to the east, and that disrupts the global circulation. It means that the warmer than normal water temperatures are going to cause lifting in this region off the southwest coast of the United States and in the eastern Pacific. That creates shower and thunderstorm activity more active in this part of the world rather than over towards Indonesia or Australia where they could see droughts. So this will likely be pushed on into Texas, meaning above normal water and rainfall across the area in the form of showers and storms, disturbances moving through. On the flip side of this, we will see a sinking region. So over here, the air rises in the atmosphere, then it comes back around and sinks over the Gulf and also in the eastern sections of the Gulf and also the Caribbean. So that's a subsidence region. Hurricanes don't like that. What we see is these much warmer water temperatures than normal create quite a temperature gradient with the average temperatures over the southwestern U.S. That energizes the subtropical jet. That creates quite a bit of shear over the western Gulf. So a lot of the storms may be displaced over the eastern Gulf, if at all, and more likely out in the open Atlantic, where water temperatures are well below normal. Over the last 75 years, since records have been taken, reliable records have been taken, there have been 22 El Ninos. No hurricane has ever hit the state of Texas during those 22 years.
All right, thank you, Patrick. Now, artificial intelligence playing a larger role in hurricane forecasting by helping gather data from hurricane hunting aircrafts that actually fly directly into those storms.
That data is sent to forecasters and put into computer models used to predict a storm's future path and strength. And it's getting pretty good. Stephen Carboni, the meteorologist in charge at the National Weather Service in Lake Charles, says the use of AI helps meteorologists and storm trackers understand the potential that a storm can have before it happens.
They've shown incredible improvement over the past few decades. And so just the state of the science overall has gotten better. You know, we've got some new tools at our disposal. I mentioned the satellites. You know, we've got newer models. You know, the models are constantly being worked on and evolving, and things like machine learning and artificial intelligence. I mean, it's amazing.
Carboni says between the new tech and AI, their predictions of a storm's impact will only continue to improve. Speaking of improvements, residents in western Orange County are one step closer to flood relief. Officials broke ground on the $31 million Tiger Creek Detention Pond project this year. It's the largest drainage improvement in county history and will add about 400 acres of water storage. Construction is expected to take about 2.5 years, but is expected to reduce flooding in Pine Forest, Rose City, and areas along Highway 12.
And in Jefferson County, more than $107 million in drainage projects are in the works. Drainage District 6 says 9 of the 17 projects are already complete. 12 News reporter Daniela Tawada-Palau is highlighting a few of them.
Flooding is a big concern for Southeast Texans, especially after heavy rainfall and during hurricane season.
Hurricane Harvey, if you were to look out across the street, it literally covered the street. It covered my yards, the drainage ditch, up to his door, up to my door, but never entered our houses.
Chuck Eberth is a Beaumont resident that lives less than a mile away from the Amelia Cutoff Detention and Diversion Project, and it gives stormwater another outlet helping ease flooding near Highway 90, a project that has been finished for a year.
We have not, since Harvey or Imelda, had rains heavy enough to block traffic, or, you know, when they say 3 or 4 feet, we might out here get 2 feet or 1 foot.
The second project will help keep Highway 90 clear when it rains. The South Nome Relief Project is already 60% complete and helping residents.
The part of the project that is complete is the channels going to the detention and the increased openings underneath the canal. They have already seen improvements during these rain events.
Wilson is the general manager of Drainage District 6, and back when Imelda hit, he felt the struggles firsthand as well.
Highway 90 during Imelda was completely inundated up to 2 feet during Nome, so traffic was still passable. I drove through it. I was coming from the Houston area back to Beaumont.
Only time will tell how these two projects will help residents, but Eberth is thinking positively.
It can only help. And I don't want to see another storm to see if it works. Let's just pray it does work.
That was Daniela Tabata-Palau reporting. Speaking of evacuations, how will you get out if you ever need to leave? TxDOT put out this map. Highways 69 and 96 are the major escape routes for most of southeast Texas, and State Highway 87 out of Orange County. And if you look closely, you can see the state has highlighted areas for additional evacuation lanes and contraflow. But what about Sabine Pass? Residents there say having only one road out is dangerous, especially if there's an evacuation.
Yeah, Highway 87 running east to west hasn't been usable for decades after years of hurricane damage and coastal erosion. Now residents are now forced to leave north to Port Arthur, traveling through the plants after the Valero explosion and a deadly wreck this year. Residents and county officials are renewing their fight for a second way out, including the idea to rebuild Highway 87. But building a new road isn't that easy. That's according to Jefferson County Judge Jeff Brannick.
Yeah, there are environmental hurdles and there are budgetary hurdles. But Highway 87 is a state highway. It's not a county road. And so it would be a State Department of Transportation project.
Judge Brannick says he's reached out to the state and federal officials to find solutions. A feasibility study that says that even conducted as recently as 2023, but still no road.
As we continue this 12 News Hurricane Headquarters special, let's talk about flooding. The new maps helping scientists track potential problem areas and why flood insurance is so important.
And we're taking a look inside the Hurricane Hunters planes, learn more about the tech and the brave men and women who fly straight into the storm.
Entergy has a plan for a growing Southeast Texas. We're adding multiple power generation sources to meet increasing demands in our communities. We're also replacing power poles and upgrading the grid to better withstand storms and reduce outages. At the same time, we're installing new power lines that can bring in power from other regions when we need it most. More and better power. That's Entergy's Southeast Texas Energy Plan. Together, we power life.
12 News Hurricane Headquarters, sponsored by Entergy.
The National Weather Service and its partners are helping to develop new flood inundation mapping designed to show where freshwater flooding could occur.
Michael Brennan, the director of the National Hurricane Center in Miami, says this will allow emergency managers to identify vulnerable areas and shape response decisions.
And we now are rolling out flood inundation mapping that is highlighting areas that can be inundated, especially from freshwater flooding for the first time. And that'll be rolling out to almost the entire United States later this year.
Brennan says inland flooding can be dangerous far from the coast and can continue to threaten communities even after a storm weakens below hurricane strength. Flood insurance is mandatory in parts of Southeast Texas, but FEMA reports only a fraction of residents are actually covered.
That's right. As inflation rises, many are weighing the cost of coverage against everyday expenses like food and gas.
That's why a lot of people don't have it. Because they got to put the very necessities first.
I understand it's extremely expensive, but as we stated before, it's not maybe an if, it's a when in my thought.
Flood insurance expert Andrew Edwards says depending on the exposure and limits, flood insurance in Beaumont can be as low as $500, and if you live near a beach, it can go as high as $6,000.
You've got your flood insurance, but what about your hurricane kit? Why, what you need in your hurricane supply kit may vary based on where you live in Southeast Texas.
Entergy has a plan for a growing Southeast Texas. We're adding multiple power generation sources to meet increasing demands in our communities. We're also replacing power poles and upgrading the grid to better withstand storms and reduce outages. At the same time, we're installing new power lines that can bring in power from other regions when we need it most. More and better power. That's Entergy's Southeast Texas Energy Plan. Together, we power life.
12 News Hurricane Headquarters, sponsored by Entergy.
Emergency officials urge families every year to prepare before a storm ever strikes. They say you should have enough supplies to last at least 3 days, but the items you need to buy for your hurricane supply kit may vary based on where you live.
Yeah, you should consider things like your proximity to the coast and whether trees could actually fall on your home. In coastal areas, sandbags are a good bet to reduce flooding risk. For inland areas, tarps are a good idea, and also in the lakes area, consider extra water and also fuel for generators in case power outages last for a while. Now, everyone should consider putting together a hurricane kit. So this kit should include things like water, non-perishable foods, a flashlight, got some batteries, and also a radio. Sergeant Shanna Clark with the Texas Department of Public Safety says waiting until the last minute for storm preparations is not ideal.
To be prepared in the event of a hurricane, if you needed to get ready right now, like I said, preparedness saves lives. So go ahead and get that go bag ready, get your emergency kit ready, so in the event of a disaster, you are ready to go.
Clark says you should plan extra if you have elderly relatives or people with disabilities in your family and pets. Meteorologist Jeff Gerber shows us some other things you might miss.
This is meteorologist Jeff Gerber, and of course hurricane season, you're going to need supplies. Probably a good idea to get them now instead of wait till later. Joining me right now is Jack Robinson with M&D Supply, and we just put out a few things that you could use during hurricane season. Of course, let's start off with the basics, water and batteries.
Yes, sir, Jeff. Everyone, these are the few supplies that you will need in the event of a hurricane. Obviously the water, perhaps a fire extinguisher, a battery case to store your batteries, extension cords. Don't forget a first aid kit. These are nice. You can put under your door as the rain starts coming in. They automatically fill up at your front door to keep water from coming in. Of course, your flashlights, your gloves. This is kind of neat. Crank radio. If you have no power, you can crank the radio and get some information. We also have this light, which is pretty neat by Nebo, that when the power goes out, the light automatically comes on in your home to give you that light you need. It lasts 2 hours on high, 4 hours on low.
Also like a gas tank, a gas can to fill up maybe a generator, or if you're on the road and you need some extra gas, you'll need a gas can.
Absolutely, good point, Jeff. Make sure you have enough gasoline with you to carry you through the hurricane.
And folks here at M&D Supply can help you out, and they can get you up and going and get all your supplies. So you get it now, and you don't have to worry about it once a hurricane does come into the Gulf. Hopefully that won't happen this year.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Collecting hurricane and storm data falls to the brave men and women in the U.S. Air Force, and they fly right into these storms to provide meteorologists with real-time information that can be life-saving.
Their high-powered aircrafts are equipped with technology that is essentially like putting a radar right into the storm.
So right now we're in the flight deck of the WC-130J. This is the newest variant of the 130s. We will fly into the center of the storm. The NOAA aircraft, they are very research focused, whereas the Air Force WC-130s are very much operations focused.
That was Major Dwight Meganero, who gave us a look at the inside of one of their planes. Major Sarah Olson, an aerial reconnaissance weather officer, shared why her job is so important to her.
The most impactful storm I've been in that I will definitely not forget was actually the landfall mission of Hurricane Melissa. Last year, as it was making landfall in Jamaica, we experienced some very extreme turbulence, thought that we had overstressed the aircraft, and then we were able to gather some pretty historic data to break some records with that storm.
Major Olson says the only way she can describe what it's like flying into a hurricane is like riding a roller coaster through a car wash. Storm surge is one of the most dangerous aspects of a major hurricane.
Yeah, Dr. Greg Postel is a hurricane and storm specialist at the Weather Channel, and he shows us why the water can be deadly.
A landfalling hurricane can bring with it a powerful surge of water that can travel inland for several blocks or even miles with devastating consequences. Let's bring that water up to 3 feet. A 3-foot storm surge, that's 3 feet of water above normally dry ground. Water's already life-threatening in this case, and it's too late to evacuate. It can knock you off your feet, float cars away, and make driving impossible. The first floor of homes and businesses often flooded in this case. Well, let's bring that storm surge up to 6 feet. That's 6 feet of water above normally dry ground. That's above my head. Vehicles get carried away and structures begin to fail. And anything can be in this water. Sharp glass, dangerous objects, and even chemicals. They're all lurking in here. Let's bring that water up to 9 feet, way above my head. Neighborhoods are inundated completely. First floors of structures completely underwater. Very few places are safe when the water rises this high. So please know if you are in an evacuation zone and listen to local officials and evacuate when ordered to do so.
As the Weather Channel's Dr. Greg Postel using virtual reality to offer an incredible explanation there.
Yeah, storm surge can affect any location along the Gulf Coast and the East Coast, and the water can even travel up rivers and canals, reaching well inland from the coastline.
Yeah, that's why it's one of the leading causes in deaths in hurricanes.
Emergency management officials say any storm preparation begins with signing up for alerts. The STAN, or Southeast Texas Alerting Network, sends emails and texts during emergencies. The information is on your screen to register. You can sign up online at thestan.com or call 1-844-578-STAN for text calls and email alerts.
Still ahead in our 12 News Hurricane Headquarters special, the difference in where the storm makes landfall and the conditions that come on the dirty and the clean sides of the storm.
Entergy has a plan for a growing Southeast Texas. We're adding multiple power generation sources to meet increasing demands in our communities. We're also replacing power poles and upgrading the grid to better withstand storms and reduce outages. At the same time, we're installing new power lines that can bring in power from other regions when we need it most. More and better power. That's Entergy's Southeast Texas Energy Plan. Together, we power life.
12 News Hurricane Headquarters, sponsored by Entergy.
Well, whether you're on the east side or the west side of an approaching hurricane, it can make all the difference.
That's right. It's something we've seen through the years all too many times. Meteorologist Carrie Cooper joins us to explain the science behind it.
Well, you hear us talk a lot during hurricane season as a tropical system approaches the coastline. It doesn't have to be here locally. It could be anywhere along the Gulf Coast or the coast of the Atlantic. We talk a lot about the clean side of a tropical system and the dirty side of a tropical system. And here's an animation I have for you here. We're going to put this into motion and notice. And you've probably learned throughout the years when a tropical system makes landfall. Of course, this was in Beryl back in 2024. The left side of the west side of the system is also the clean side. That's where you have the lowest winds, the lowest storm surge, and the lower tornado threat. On the right side, you well know that's the dirty side. That's where you have the highest winds, of course, the highest storm surge of the winds piling up off the water and coming inland, and of course your greatest tornado threat as well. And of course the speed of tropical systems makes a big difference, and it can make a huge impact on wind speeds as well. Of course, the faster storms moving, you see the inflow there off the Gulf or the Atlantic or anywhere in the Caribbean. I'm just showing you Texas here kind of for an example between the clean and the dirty side. Of course, this was Beryl back in 24. Remember, as it worked just west of Houston there, of course, we had a lot of flooding. We had the highest tides, highest storm surge because we were on the dirty side. Otherwise, on the clean side, you had that lower surge and the lowest winds across the western portions of the coast.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you for being with us for this 12 News special broadcast.
Yeah, we hope that you and your family prepare for whatever comes our way. Remember to download the 12 News Plus app to keep on hand throughout the season.
Entergy has a plan for a growing Southeast Texas. We're adding multiple power generation sources to meet increasing demands in our communities. We're also replacing power poles and upgrading the grid to better withstand storms and reduce outages. At the same time, we're installing new power lines that can bring in power from other regions when we need it most. More and better power. That's Entergy's Southeast Texas Energy Plan. Together, we power life.